So we knew going into 2015 it was going to be a challenging year as American Muslims because we knew we were dealing with Islamophobia, violence, and sadly to say, more than half of Americans view us unfavorably because we're American Muslims. So in the words of Gandhi, we must become the change we want to see. And when we reflected on that, we decided that, the theme for 2015 should be to rise. Rise above victimization. Rise as American Muslims and set a good, positive example. But rise with confidence and grace and dignity, because sometimes we can rise with uncontrolled emotion that is counterproductive. Rise above limitation and negativity and pessimism and Islamophobic rhetoric. So we kicked off the meeting last year, similar to this, more of a private setting, where we invited Judge Stephanie Thacker. She inspired us with her own life story of someone who was raised in a tiny town of West Virginia, Hamlin, went to college, became an attorney, ultimately was appointed by President Obama as a federal judge to the Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. Lifetime appointment. The next seat up is a seat on the Supreme Court. And she was an example of how a person can rise above limitation and restricted circumstances and create her own future. I'm proud to say she is a sister of my wife. Shortly after that, February 10th, 3 young American Muslims were shot and killed in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Horrific crime, allegedly over the parking dispute. We said, when we reflected on that, there's no community that is immune to that, including our community. So what can we do to prepare the community, God forbid, if we are faced with a situation like that? So with the collaboration of the Islamic Center, Rabbi Ureki, also Reverend Hutchins from St. John's Episcopal Church, and also Sky Kirshner, we held a community-based multi-faith town hall meeting to discuss violence in our lives, how to deal with it, how to prepare our community for a time of crisis, how to forge a common response if we're faced with such a challenge. Homeland Security was facilitating discussion. The FBI was there. The police department was there. Mr. Booth Goodwin, at that time, the attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia, was also there on the panel. And by the way, he apologizes for not being here. He was going to be here last Saturday. He has a commitment this evening. And for those of you who do not know, he has resigned as the attorney for the Southern District, and he's running for governor on a Democratic ticket against Kessler and against Cole and Justice on the Republican side. So he wanted to be here to get to know you a little bit better, but inshallah we may host him at a private event later on. What did that result, this meeting, that town hall meeting? I think we all agree that it strengthened our relationships with our community leaders and our spiritual leaders. It enhanced our trust, with them. And then, what a pleasant surprise, Rabbi Ureki, who became very good friends, called me up shortly after that, and he said, "Look, Ali, the Israel-Palestine situation is here to stay, and I'd like to do a joint program with you." He says, "We've never done that before, but I feel that I can do it through the channel of Cafe. Could we make that possible?" So I asked Ibtisam from the Islamic Center to join me on that discussion. And inshallah, God's willing, if it does work out, we will be holding one in the spring. And it's called Painful Hope, where an Israeli Zionist and a Palestinian activist, both are very good friends, are on a tour promoting peace I said, if they can do it, why can't we in our own community? So stay tuned for that. As we were working as a team for that town hall, we came across also a pleasant surprise. We found out that we don't work well together as a team. Many actually did not want to work as a team. Why is this person leading this initiative? Why is this logo on top of this logo? Why is this word on top of that word? So we got into the weeds and we lost perspective of what we're trying to achieve. So we said, you know what can we do as a cafe team to actually rise above? Because when you get in the weeds, you get high and you lose perspective. So why don't we rise above that and do a cafe forum on leadership? And if you remember, we did one on the V-shape formation. It's when the geese fly south, they fly in a V shape. It's proven that they fly faster, they fly longer distance, more efficiently, more productively. That shared leadership, every goose actually takes a role in that leadership, but it's only when they are ready. And when they are not in a leadership role, they are in a supportive leadership role. There are no egos and no hierarchies in that V-shape formation. So we brought that to light for our community members to say, we can do better as human beings. And interestingly enough, right after that, some individuals were challenging. I said, we got to do better than that. So we brought in Sheikh Mus'ad from Sakina Collective in light of the Laylat al-Ma'raj. Laylat al-Ma'raj is about reflection, self-awareness, and anchoring yourself and getting to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that was a good reflection on emotional intelligence and self-awareness. The more you're anchored with yourself, the better your relationship is with God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more you are anchored with yourself, the more you are able to relate to others. One of our community members wrote a book, a fiction in the language of miracles. So we worked with the Islamic Center on a public reading. The reason why we did that, because the book had a beautiful message. It's a message of culture, understanding, and acceptance. Interestingly enough, at that meeting, there was an ACLU board member, which we did not know. So she came to us afterward and she said, I love what I see. I love the connection that you guys are making. But since you guys are struggling, do you know that we also offer Know Your Rights workshop? We'd like to offer that to your community. So we're in communication with ACLU, the Charleston chapter, on hosting this, God's willing, in the next couple of months. So on a community level, we've been busy. But then we looked and said, we are a resource to Charleston, West Virginia. 80% of our members are physicians. We went to the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation, and they serve 6 counties, and said, what can we do as Muslim community to better serve the 6 counties? And she said, well, since you are physicians, she pointed us towards Health Right, the clinic in our backyard. They serve 18,000 patients. They are underserved and underprivileged. We ask you if you would volunteer. You can see patients at their clinic, or you can have their patients come to your clinic. We did have a few hands that were raised. We obviously would like more. I think we have about 7 or 8. We're a community of 150 members. They have 300 volunteers, but they still need more, and I think we can do better. There talk about opening our own clinic. Why not have our own clinic? We are in dialogue with some of you on actually setting the foundation for that, and more to come. Others have come and said, what can you do on a state level? So we launched an outreach campaign, a political outreach campaign, to meet with every single politician in the state. Why was that important? When we see Trump and we see Carson and the like speaking about Muslims in that way, they don't represent the Republican Party. The Republican Party itself said they do not represent us. We don't want our politicians to go on TV and say the same thing about Muslims, and then it's shame on us. Because what are the Muslims who are the neighbors of Trump? Where are the Muslims who are the neighbors of Carson? And they are the neighbors. And Trump did say, in my building, I have Muslims and they are great people. But he still says the garbage that he says. So shame on us if we don't reach out to our politicians. We've met with every single one of them on several occasions, with the exception of McKinley up in Morgantown. To the point where Senator Manchin asked, this is history in the making, Capito and I will meet with you and 25 of spiritual community leaders. Could you set that up? So I worked with Ibtisam and others on setting this up, and we had our Jewish friends there, our Christian friends there, and many other community leaders. And guess who spoke on behalf of the Muslims at that private meeting? It wasn't us, the Muslims. Our community leaders and spiritual leaders actually took the lead in addressing Islamophobia and the refugee crisis. We were the last to speak, proud to say, because they set the foundation for us. To the point where Senator Manchin said, the work that you're doing in the community, I'd like to bring the national media here. Isn't that right, Ibtisam? We're rising above the limitations and the victimization and showing that we are just like anybody else. We just happen to be Muslims. On a national level, proud to say, we connect very well, as you know. So the Muslim Public Affairs Council held their, in the DC office, held their leadership summit and invited 50 American Muslim leaders from around the United States, Cafe Ali Fikr being one of them. Met at the White House, and they were discussing solutions to the challenges that American Muslims were facing. What came out of it? An initiative, a community-led initiative to counter violent extremism in the United States, something that is supported by the government, but it's a community-led initiative. To the point where they connected us with Brookings Institute, a think tank, invite us to attend their U.S. Islamic World Forum in Qatar back in June. We were part of a 40-member team to actually develop and further enhance the safe space model that they've initiated on how to counter violent extremism in the United States. It's almost done. The draft is almost complete, and now it's finding the funding for it. And when it does come to fruition, we'd like to bring that to our local community to actually model that, because it's only been modeled now in 2 cities across the United States. Proud to say that Duke, Umid Safi, the director of the Islamic Studies at Duke, he collaborated with us a couple of times, and he said, I like the work that you do. The leadership summit that we hold every 2 years, he said, I'd like that to be hosted at Duke, if possible this year. So we met with their business development office back in the fall, and we are in the process of building that foundation. But since it's going to be a Duke, they're asking, will your community attend? And my answer was, I don't know. So I am asking you that when we hold this in September, I'd like your support. This is going to put us on the map. This collaboration, this agreement with Duke will put Charleston on the map. And if we can get few of you to attend, if you're not able to attend, few of you to support or sponsor, that would be fantastic. That would be one part of a legacy that we can certainly leave behind. The next year is going to be even more challenging year. So our theme for next year is to inspire. So we're doing a lot of heavy lifting, but we'd like to inspire you to actually take the lead on some of these initiatives. So what we have in store is that few of our community members have come and asked us to do a number of things. One was drugs. We're not immune to drugs. What can we do to tackle the issue of drugs? The state is, I think, number one of drug addiction. So it's obviously in our backyards. Peer pressure is there. So there is a team that is going to be co-led by Mrs. Sha'lan. We're working with her to have a team of young adults and parents to actually build a workshop of dealing with drugs in our community. Another thing we're working on is a leadership series with Mr. Stephen Smith. It's an interfaith leadership series for about 6 months. Our Jewish friends, our Christian friends, us, maybe 30, 40 people, and every month it will be a different topic. You will build it. You will build the curriculum on what that looks like. So stay tuned, stay tuned for more information on that. Some of you have asked, you said, we get emotional when we respond. We like how the cafe team articulate themselves. Could you do a cafe forum on the art of communication? And we'll be more than happy to do that because I think that's one of our expertise. So that would be a fun workshop that we will do. By the way, all of what we've said, this is half of what we did. Question, what do you think our budget to hold all of what I've just mentioned, and that's half of it, what do you think our annual budget is?
10 million?
I wish. But for those who do know the answer, do not say, by the way. But what do you think our annual budget is? Give me a number. Be serious.
100,000 a mistake.
100,000. Give me another number.
32,000.
What do you say? 400,000. Give me a number. 30,000. Give me another number. I can't. I'm sorry? 5,000. So would it surprise you to say that we are lean at a 15,000?
No. No way, he's lying.
Because I'm the treasurer and the president, so I know what's in the books. So we're talking about 1,000 to 1,500 a month, guys, to do the work that we do. And the reason we do it that way is because we are all volunteers. When we fly on our dime. The events that we do it on our dime. Kirk, who videotapes, we take care of Kirk. I'm going to end with a last reflection. When you go home and you're talking to your wife and talking to your husband and you're reflecting on this evening, I want you to ask 2 questions. What do you say? Write a check? That wasn't one of the questions, but I like it. I like it. But seriously, honestly speaking, if I have your commitment to ask 2 questions, okay, let me say this. Do I have your commitment to ask these 2 questions that I'm going to share with you? I didn't hear you. Yes. The first question, what will our community look like without the cafe team? If the answer is positive, what can I do to help? What's the first question?
What do we look like without cafe?
What does the community look like without the cafe team? What's the second question? What can I do to help? Because I can tell you guys, and honestly speaking, we've been having this conversation the last several months. Sustaining this is difficult. If we don't have the volunteers, if we don't have the financial support, it's difficult. So, to hold you accountable, if you did answer those questions, The next time you see us, just give us the answer. You can email us, you can call us. The next time you see us, we're not in a rush. We're here. We're not going anywhere. We're committed. But own it and hold yourself accountable. If you did ask these two questions and you did answer them, own it and address it with one of our cafe teams. It could be as simple as, I'm coming bringing coffee to your next cafe forum. It could be as simple as, I'm coming and I'm bringing a check for $25. It could be as simple as, I've never been to a cafe forum, I'm going to come. Or, I've been to a cafe forum, but I've never brought a friend. It could be any of the above. But if I have your commitment on that, I will close and wish you all a good night. So I have your commitment. So once again, I want to thank every single one of you. I would like to thank the ambassador and his wife, and I'm sorry that I did not mention her. Rushaida, she is with him. They made the trip from DC. We'd like to take some pictures, so please, those who have gotten awards and anybody want to take a picture with the ambassador or with any of us, please feel free to do so. And you are free to go, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.